Hey there, welcome to the Sunday Scaries. I'm your host, Mike, and today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to be talking about The Sopranos and what made it so great. And this is a show I will definitely talk more in depth about. I may do some season reviews, but also I just want to talk about some different characters and different incidents that happen in the show. But to start, a lot of people I know have not seen this show, and I don't think they really understand the impact it had back when it came out. Up until this point, there were no shows like Dexter and Breaking Bad. You didn't have a show where the lead was actually a bad guy. And The Sopranos did that through this Italian-American family and the character Tony Soprano and his community, where most of the guys are actually gangsters. And they're a New Jersey mafia crime family that does business with the five families in New York City. And they, do all the classic mafia things, like they do murder people, but they're also running illegal gambling operations, construction, unions, different projects, buying property up and selling it, all sorts of different things, right? But what I think people don't really understand about the show is it tackled a lot of real world issues through the lens of a criminal. And Tony Soprano is such a great character. I mean, he's very layered, and there's times you're just like, this is the worst human being I've ever met, but then there's other times you're like, this guy is so kind and compassionate, and how could this guy be, a gangster? How could he be so evil at times? So, and you see that with a lot of different characters in the show, but I just wanted to give, for somebody that has never seen The Sopranos, just kind of 5 reasons why the show was great and different types of themes it tackled. This show came out in 1999, and one of the first themes it started to tackle through Tony Soprano, this mobster, having panic attacks and going to his therapist and talking about his feelings is, he feels like the American dream is dead. And during the late 1990s and early 2000s, and even today now, I think a lot of people feel that. He talks about how, he feels like he came in at the end of something, and his, father and his uncle, who are both mobsters, they got in at the ground floor, and how there's such a benefit to being at the start of something and not the end. And, he's kind of alluding to that the mafia lifestyle is coming to an end. But I think even today, a lot of us look back and we look at our parents and grandparents and, how successful they were and all these different opportunities they had. And sometimes a lot of people in today's world feel like it's a lot harder to start your own business. It's a lot harder to go to college. It's a lot harder to pay for college. Student debt is still a big issue, but buying a house, raising a family, these were all things that our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents, they just sort of did, and it was expected, and it wasn't seen as such a hard thing to do. Finding a career can be difficult for people now. And anyways, they did it in such a beautiful fashion to really kind of capture this idea that the end is coming, and our generation is closer to the end of the American dream versus the beginning. And that's still a big fear that I think a lot of people are dealing with today. Then the show also tackled the issue that there's good and evil in all of us. And that was one of the genius things about having this mobster and these mobsters be the center of all the story, right? Tony, he can be so vicious. You see him murder people in the show. You see him extort people who have gambling issues and owe him money. You see some of his gangsters, they own strip clubs they also used for prostitution. I mean, just horrible things to be doing to people, right? And forcing people into a lifestyle and getting in debt to you so that they're almost like slaves in a little bit of a way, because they have to do what you say at that point and threaten to kill them if they don't. So there's that. But then, you see this whole other side, particularly with Tony, where he's trying to be a good father. I mean, he tries to give his kids guidance. He does love his wife in a weird way, even though he's always cheating on her, but he's so dependent on her, will not divorce her under any circumstance, even though at one point in the show, she sort of pushes for a divorce. And then you also just see he has this love for animals, which is kind of weird. I mean, the first episode, he's got these ducks in the backyard, and, he gets sad when they fly away because they're all grown up. But even there's another episode where this mobster has to have an intervention and accidentally sits on his girlfriend's dog and kills it. It was a little poodle. And in the intervention, Tony finds out that, he killed the dog, and he's just flipping out. He's like, "You killed the dog? What do you mean you killed the dog?" And this is coming from a guy that's murdered like a ton of people on the show. You're just like, what is going on here? So anyways, you see like these kind of good qualities and bad qualities in a lot of the characters, and that's one of the genius things about having a show where the main person is a bad guy doing bad things, but then you also see him do good things on the side, and The Sopranos really was the first show to try to tackle this. And then there's this other aspect of the fear, but also the thrill of not working with the government and making your own rules. And we all agree, like, you should follow our law society, and we can't take law and matters in our own hand. But in the show, Tony and his crew, they do their own thing, and they're making money illegally, but they're also like just handling different issues themselves. Like there's one episode where they get to decide pretty much if they're going to turn in the soccer coach who's been sleeping with the high school students that their daughters play for, and they go through this moral dilemma of, do they kill him or do they turn him over to the cops and let justice handle it, where he's not going to have anything too severe happen to him other than maybe going to prison, which is still severe, but different situations like that. And it's one of those things where there's some times where you're just like, that's horrible, they shouldn't be doing it. But there's other times where you're like, man, our society really kind of lets us down in handling some of these issues, and the law doesn't necessarily give what feels like should be justice in here to the people. And there's something so scary, but also so thrilling about these group of guys that are just doing it their way, even if a lot of what they're doing is wrong. And I think a lot of people out there at some point in their lives have thought, man, I wish I could change this about the country or this about these laws. And these guys are just like, F it, we're gonna do it. So, that also made the show really entertaining and great. And there's so many just moral and ethical dilemmas you see go on throughout the show. And those moral issues actually tie into another theme where not just the mobsters, but the characters around them who are not in the mafia, but are kind of either married or associated to the lifestyle because they're close to the people in the mafia, have to make. Carmela, Tony's wife, the whole time she's getting cheated on, he's, running around with so many prostitutes or just random women. And she knows he murders people and he makes all his money illegally. And so, there's times where she's weighing in, am I like a culprit in this because I know what's going on, or should I leave? Should I get a divorce? A lot of the shows she's trying to be a good Catholic, and she goes to the priest for guidance, but then she even has her own little temptations with other men and puts herself in bad situations. So, and you also see this with other characters like Adriana, who's engaged to Christopher for most of the show, and she gets pinched by the cops for heroin, and they want her to be an informant. And so she's not really in the mafia, but she knows all about their dealings, and she knows what her fiance does, who she absolutely loves. I mean, she wants to marry Christopher more than anything. She's got almost a young schoolgirl's heart towards him, that's like in middle school or something, which is really endearing in a lot of ways to watch her care for him. But, she starts having to weigh, what do I do? Am I loyal to the family? Am I loyal to myself and doing the right thing and turning these people into the cops? I mean, she goes through all sorts of stuff. And then you even have Tony's therapist, because she knows what he does, and even though he doesn't, confess anything in therapy, he kind of alludes to things. He can't outright say, like, I killed someone, or she'd have to report him, but she knows. And there's an episode called Employee of the Month, which I'll probably do a review on because I think it's just such a powerful episode. But she gets brutally raped in a parking lot, and her rapist gets to go away scot-free. They know who he is, they arrest him, but the cops mishandle something and they cannot try him, cannot prosecute him. And she goes in to get like a Subway sandwich or pizza or something, and his picture's up on the wall as an Employee of the Month, and she freaks out. And she weighs in if she should tell Tony in a therapy session, because she knows he'll go and brutally murder the guy, and not just murder him, torture him. And you know, she's like, I had all this injustice done to me and I'm not going to get justice. So, you know, that's a really interesting episode and just one of the many examples of the characters around the mobsters trying to weigh in what's their role in all this, and if they are culprits and how they should manage their decisions. And then the last thing that I think anyone can relate to is the fear of family and the pains of family and the different dynamics. And you see this both in the mobsters' personal families, right? Like Tony has his wife and 2 kids, and he's dealing with all these different issues, especially with his son, who's kind of a screw up and gets bad grades, even though they've put him in a really nice school, private school, and they give him every opportunity possible to succeed. He's just kind of like a lazy and kind of guy. But you have that, but then you also have the mafia family, and there's so much betrayal because the FBI has so many guys secretly pinched, and they're rats is what they call them, and they're reporting to the feds the dealings and trying to help put their fellow mobsters in jail. And you know, you gotta remember, they swore this blood oath to be in the mob, and it's supposed to be like this brotherhood and this really intense family dynamic. So but it's something a lot of people can relate to, because with your own family, you know, first of all, betrayal is the biggest pain anyone can have from a family member, but then, you know, failure to help a child, like as strong and crazy as Tony is as a mobster, he can do nothing with all his money to get his son on board and healthy. And again, with betrayal, you know, Carmela, she's got Tony always cheating on her, and it's hurtful and it's hard on her, and she kind of knew who she was marrying going into it, but I don't think she fully comprehended it was going to be quite this bad when she married Tony. And you know, she has her faith and she's trying to still be a good Catholic, like I said, but you know, just the pain of you're powerless of what the people in your family who you ultimately love most can do to you. And you know, it's something that was really relatable in the show, even if it was being told through the eyes of a mobster and a gangster. And honestly, that made it even more kind of relatable, because you're seeing someone that's so powerful and can do so many different things that most of us cannot do, still have all the same issues that an everyday American would have, or just an everyday person would have in this show. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. You know, Sopranos is one of the best shows that was ever made. If you've not seen it, please go hop into the show and watch it. I talked about a little bit of it. I don't think I spoiled too much if you want to be surprised in the show, but I do recommend it. And leave a comment, because the show is so much more than just about these horrible criminals that are immoral. There's so many beautiful themes in the show, scary themes, hurtful themes, but good themes too. So leave a comment, let me know what you think and liked about the show. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. I'm sure I'll do a few more videos on the Sopranos and get a little bit more into the story and a little more specific on characters. But yeah, all I know is, at least tomorrow, I'm not a part of an organized crime crew.